This talk is about how I ended up on the death row of Squirrel Hill and who's responsible, what it means, and how it complicates things for people. For example, my old school, the city of Pittsburgh, they downplay my career. I did nothing to warrant being put on the death row. But the fact that I am came about in part because, well, to understand what Squirrel Hill is takes some work. Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh are located in Oakland. Then there's a long hill to a residential neighborhood that is predominantly Jewish. That's known as Squirrel Hill. It's a Holocaust survivor community, among other things. It produces students. My high school, they went to Harvard, Swarthmore, Yale, Princeton, Oberlin, the Ivy League schools. So you have an eccentric Ivy League gentrifying population from who I was born in 1960, and so my homies were born around that same time. And Israel was family to me. I grew up in Squirrel Hill. My brother was Jewish. But Gail Burston angled at me to attack me with a really, it was a terrible ordeal. It was like a Manson ordeal. I was used for sex. I was gassed and deafened. And then I testified about it. And the chancellor of the University of Pittsburgh sort of cautioned me that there were outsiders interested. I knew that King Crimson had become interested. I didn't realize that Yoko Ono was working with Gail Burston to set me up in the eyes of the cool. I will never be cool. That's not my status in the world. I was deaf and pretty bedraggled. My father was a school bus driver. He was a responsible educator too. So we were not cool. We opened doors for black people. We tried to be helpful and understanding. I have, you know, 10 years of experience working for and going to school at various community colleges, both in Pittsburgh and here in Tacoma, where I now live. I'm a senior citizen. I'm 65 years old, and I have Parkinson's. The anti-imperialist crowd and the young podcasters, of course, have identified me as the uncool person from who Carnegie Mellon University loves to hate. And they ingeniously promoted the idea that I was an enemy of the young and reckless and politically savvy. So I have, you know, been identified as the uncool, unwelcome, interfering, naive coward. And you know that how this brings martyr complexes to the surface in people who eyeball targeting people. And I think I'm better than them. I'm a patriarch. I'm a white. And it just tumbles down from Reagan's cronies like Angela Davis and Jesse Jackson. It's the big taboo structure against white liberalism in academics. So snitching on Gail Burston and playing that role had the combined weight of singling me out for um, guru ideas from Obama, for example, really led into me with the force of an occult group of people called the Ouspensky Circle, who had uh, a social group in the Harlem Renaissance back in the 20s. They circulated around the Italian futurists. So you have this like mystical establishment in Hollywood, working with black people, working with the Italians, the Japanese, who come up with this seance of Yoko Ono's ideas about Hiroshima. My father was in the Navy. So they see me as the little boy. Oh, so it's like a Svengali thing, because that was the name of the bomb, too, the little boy bomb. So this woman from Bryn Gail Burson, Yoko Ono, angry at me from a mystical group. We will cleanse the occult spirit world of the white intruder of evil who dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. Then I just was the lucky one who was born to this. Steve Langer of Princeton and his Israeli fanatic said, I'm not sorry for anything I did, only that it had to be you. I was born to this operation. The problem for people like Bill Mazeroski, passed away recently, and Mario Lamo, and the mayor of Pittsburgh, Sam Hazo, the people, whoever's now running the University of Pittsburgh from the chancellor's office. The problem for them is I was just a bedraggled deaf kid who was making just barely enough money to cover food costs and rent. And that I wasn't terrible at academics. When I finally would start sign night, which the girl had Down syndrome, but she loved me. She was my best friend, and she taught me enough that I spent 4 years with straight A's in college. So I was able to catch up with some of these spinner beanies in the racket meaning the podcast people, like Matt Kennard and, you know, who the people who are online all the time with their spinner beanies whirling about anti-imperialism and U.S. aggression with Israel, most of which I agree with totally. I was able to catch up with them. And they called, the NAACP in Pittsburgh called this my interfering. With what? With Steve Langer's plan to use me because it had to be me to be used. I was interfering with the idea that I belonged on this secret intelligence quorum's death row because I served the purposes that they wanted stereotype-wise. Okay, well, I, the witchcraft occult nihilism and gang pack macabre of this mentality is a force that has been harnessed by like Harvard culture anthropologists from Squirrel Hill to incite mean-spirited acts of cruelty, and while they're slapping five and calling themselves amongst each other the Jewish Defense League. That's how, like, Thomas Gordon of Harvard partners up with Gail Burstyn in this peculiar guerrilla theater song and dance that they had around their mutual partner, Leslie Katz, who I met at the governor's school. And anytime something happens, they imagine an explanation that plays against the trance of witchcraft nihilism that they have conjured. It doesn't have anything to do with reality. I've never owned a weapon. I've never had anything but sympathy and compassion for the Jewish community. My brother, my beautiful, beautiful brother, is himself Jewish. My father was an angry World War II veteran because of what they did to the Jews in Germany. But even though Israel was family, I watched what they did to Gaza for the last 2.5 years, and it's divorce. I'm on their death row and have been certifiably for a long time. But they attacked me. I am not at war with Israel. I just don't mistake what they're doing.